Welcome, RPG Limit Break viewers. I hope you're all having a terrific Tuesday and that you're ready for some high octane free enterprise because tonight's matchup kicks off our Zemus Zone 5 semifinals week for the Blue Moon Waxing bracket. I'm Y2 Sky. I am joined to my left by the esteemed Commander Leonhard. Commander, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, thank you. Happy to be here with you all for this matchup. JohnBirckhead and Funnelcakes have gone through a lot of tough competition to make it to the semifinals. They'll be playing at most 3 matches this week, and the winner will move on to the finals.
Very exciting and very high stakes, and I've had the pleasure of racing many a async this season with both JohnBirckhead and Funnelcakes. Both of them very fast, very talented runners. You're gonna see a very close matchup and a very close series this week.
Now, we do have a Fu start, and that's the only way you can start with Fusoya on the Blue Moon flag set. The only way you can get them is to start with them.
Yeah, that'll throw kind of a wrench into what a runner might normally do in the early game. As you know, with Fu, he starts with only 500 hit points and a very small selection of relatively weak spells. You might find 1 or 2 useful ones in there, but by and large, you're not going to do a whole lot with them. So you're going to want to track down some boss fights immediately to get that HP pull up, and most importantly, to get those high-powered spells, because that's where you're going to find your power of the willingness seed.
Yeah, because of how powerful Fu is when he joins you in the vanilla game, he's been altered for how he works in the randomizer. Instead of the full spell list and hit point total, he starts with 500 hit points and only 6 of his spells, and every boss you beat unlocks 3 spells and gives him another 100 hit points, and the list of spells that he gets is shuffled somewhat, but the really powerful spells do tend to come towards the end of that run.
Definitely. And we're starting off with a Sid and some Dark Imps in Baron 1 and a Leviathan summon as the first prize. So unless we see Iridia later on in our character hunts here, we're not gonna really have much use for that other than a little bit of cash.
Yep, and those of you that have been watching the Blue Moon tournament so far, you know that we've got the See No Earned flag on, which means that the only time we're going to find characters are in their free spots. So our runners will know before too long whether or not they have Iridia to use that Leviathan or whether it'll just be cash.
Yeah, and Sid coming with some pretty decent equipment there off the bat. Archer bow and mute arrows. I don't know if Birckhead's going to peek this cave. I don't know if the arrows alone will be enough to carve through that boss pretty quickly, but depending on what's there. Oh, and it's our first objective of the night. Dr. Dialogue himself is one of our required bosses. And yeah, Thorage is not going to do too well with that.
No. For an overworld spot, this particular location has pretty good magic resistance.
Yeah, Funnelcakes just going right to work with that Sid, just dealing damage with Archer bow and mute arrows. That's pretty high power for that spot. Not a lot of spells unlocked for it, but we're one step closer to that all-powerful nuke.
Yep. And one objective closer to the crystal. We have 8 bosses up. Our is 0 out of 7 because our runners only need to find 7 of these 8 bosses to get the crystal to go fight Zeromus.
Yep, absolutely. And I definitely see some spicy ones in that list for tonight. The Ogopogo and the Evil Wall right next to each other on the list.
Yeah, and depending on what spot those 2 bosses end up in, they can be pretty rude. Evil Wall is generally not concerned with how much actions are in the ATB queue. He's going to step forward and punch in spots with high physical attack power that can be very deadly. Ogopogo, of course, opens the combat with 2 big waves that will combine to hit your party for 1/2 of their maximum HP.
But we're definitely getting some good starting bosses to get Fu spells early. That is the free officer soldier fight at Antlion.
Yeah, you get rid of the soldiers, which don't have too much hit points compared to the officer, and the officer runs away. You lose the XP, but this early on, we're not really concerned.
Yep, definitely. And then an early Baron key also is a key item. So Antlion pretty good for runners to hit early. Baron key has proven to be a very, very useful key item because it opens up 3 boss checks for you.
Yeah, and we did see one of those boss checks earlier when we got our initial starter kit. It was a red robe sprite, which means that Dark Imps is one of those 3, so we know that's not an objective, but the other 2 still could be objectives, and unlocking 2 boss spots is pretty good. You'd have to get a hook or a darkness to be seeing more.
Yep, and speaking of hook, we do have the forced hook flag on, which means to get underground, our runners do have to go through that hook route. You cannot find the magma key until you at least get underground. So again, that increases the value of that Baron key because it's giving you more bosses that you can fight for foo spells before you dive that hook route.
And with some Divergence, Funnelcakes finds a sparkle on Hobbs, but it's just Plague, not one of our objectives. And JohnBirckhead, getting our free key item from Bedward, it's the Rat Tail.
Rat Tail's another great free hook route item to find. It gives you just one more shot at a key item before you go underground, closer to that ever-present 10 key items to double your experience. And Funnelcake's taking an unfortunate wipe at Plague there. Yeah, you've got Foo as your anchor. Plague, Foo actually starts out at 20 agility, so that's pretty fast for that Hobbs spot, and your count is going to tick down really fast because of it. A quick swap to that Sid should remedy this for Funnelcakes.
Yeah, it's not ideal. FF4 has one of the earliest implementations of an ATB engine, and because of the way it's worked out, like you're saying, when there's a high agility anchor, as Fu is in the center slot, everyone, including the boss, needs a lot more ticks to take their action, and that's why the count runs so quickly.
And Funnelcake's using a different strat there, using Fu's agility to get off a Star Veil before the count went off. So that also worked really well, as Fu will not get the count, and then that will cause Plague to kind of go into an infinite loop of counts until he's killed.
Yeah, Funnelcakes using the power of count against Plague and using Fusia's speed to get that veil up. Not having to wait very long for Plague to count himself out, much like Plague didn't have to wait long in the first round.
Yep, and meanwhile, Birckhead's kind of done some more character checks, as a Rosa picked up and a Porum, so I guess you can call it triple White Mage seed if you count Fu.
I mean, they all learn white magic. They're all going to learn Cure 4 eventually. I think they all qualify.
Yeah, as far as being able to pump up the heals and also the berserks and blinks and all the wonderful utility from the support class.
Now JohnBirckhead's taking his turn at the play. He's got a Sid anchor, so he might be able to handle this a little more traditionally.
Yeah, Sid Anchor and 4 characters queuing up actions too will also help.
Yeah, that's a good point, because as long as the characters are executing actions, the count is not ticking, and that gives you more time to input commands without losing time.
Funnelcake's checking for bull, and we've got objective boss number 2. That's the Magus Sisters.
Again, not that big a concern this early in this spot.
Yeah, we're packing mute arrows also, so yeah, we're more than ready to handle this.
Yeah, Magus Sisters, one of many fights in the randomizer that are of the mage type, so those mute arrows are dealing 4 times the normal damage.
And that's a berserk on Funnelcakes' Soya, so first, pretty big useful utility spell there, especially if you pick up a better melee character than Sid.
Yeah, or even a heroine robe to turn one of our ladies into a melee character.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Rosa is going to that can get you through a hook route.
No doubt. JohnBirckhead, the first one, or heading down into Antline now, gonna get that Baron key that Funnelcakes got earlier. Gonna be happy to see that. Meanwhile, Funnelcakes wandering over to Baron, probably at least gonna do the Baron in, might feel up to taking on the castle itself, especially with that Fu. He's gonna unlock 2 more sets of spells from this inn from the 2 bosses here.
Yep, and that's a mom bomb in this spot, which is that's not what you want to see here. Mom bomb is still going to have that extra 10,000 HP, even though she will go into that exploding phase with only a few hundred points of damage.
Yeah, and fortunately, Sid and Fu have a good HP pool. Mom Bomb's Explode is the one explode attack in the game that's actually based on the magic power instead of just hit points, and for an overworld, this is pretty high magic power, but I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think our only issue of concern might be we still don't have the AoE damage to really wipe out those 6 bombs at least in 1 or 2 rounds. We've only got the Thor Rages and our level 1 spells for Fu still.
Yeah, and as you saw from the way the Ice 1 spread hit the bombs, even though they're the lower hit point enemy in this formation, they have the better magic resistance.
Yeah, Cubs Roll 21 mentioning in chat. Funnel, what Funnel is doing, I've seen this done in the Red Moon a lot. If you can get through kind of the opening key items with just your Fu, and you also have a level 20 Sid there, this is hedging your bets against a early Darkness Crystal and a possibility for a D machine. Because what happens here is the other characters are not getting any other experience, and you'll have a much better setup for slingshotting those characters and a potential D machine grind if you hit that Darkness Crystal pre-hook.
Yeah, that's a very good point, as Funnelcakes makes short work of this vanilla karate. The key item, Weak is a nice spell, speaking of D machine. Sand Ruby is 1 key item, closer to 10. But the reason that works for the D machine, did you want to explain that more?
Sure. So when you hear me use the term slingshot, that is talking about a bonus that we grant. So with that, we use the see no earn flag in Zemus Zone 5. However, under on our normal character flags, you can find characters even well into the late game. There's one character on the lunar dice and seeds that are not see no earned. So you can end up finding characters pretty late in the game. So to help catch them up, a character that is 5 levels behind the median of your party will also receive a double XP bonus. So that will give you twice your value out of anything that you happen to grind for levels.
Yep, perfectly explained. And that is what Funnelcake seems to be setting up for. Since he's got empty space in his party, he doesn't have the option to dismiss Edward the way JohnBirckhead did. But oh look, it's another objective.
The seats start to look a little bit jetty. I don't know, 3 out of 7. Yeah, we'll see what happens by the time we get underground. But yeah, I love it when I see Evil Wall here.
Yeah, because you're not going to see him somewhere else.
Exactly, and even though he cheats the ATB system, he's still pretty slow at this spot, especially with a Fu anchor. Funnelcakes has Fire 3 on his food now, so yeah, now we're dishing out some damage. Letting that Edward get some experience there, and now also seeing Ice 3 and Warp, both critical spells. Ice 3 we know can do some damage. Commander, why is Warp important?
Warp is important because in the Blue Moon flag set, we have the Warp glitch on, which works just like it does in the vanilla game. When you defeat the Dwarf Castle bosses, you can warp back into the Crystal Room. But, due to space limitations, this is the same Crystal Room that is at the bottom of Sealed Cave. So you can check that key item without having to make that walk down. Now, if you want to fight the boss, and this is a boss hunt, you are going to need the Luca key to make it down there and have a look.
Once again, perfectly explained. Thanks, Commander. Funnelcakes level 3 spells have put him through to the trial room pretty quickly. So we're about to get a glimpse of that key item and what that third boss might be.
Dun dun dun. Drum roll, drum roll. Bum, 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 ba-dum.
And there's our hook. There is our way underground. Trying to think of what Funnelcakes has checked and if there's anything left. I think Funnel just did the Baron Inn. He didn't go in the castle. So we could still check there for a Darkness Crystal. But at this point, yeah, if you whiff on the Darkness Crystal, this strategy that Funnel's doing still works out kind of well because then you can still slingshot characters in Evelyn Castle, for example.
And Funnelcakes hasn't gotten the free item from Edward in Troya. That rat tail could also be turned in to see if a Darkness Crystal is there.
Oh, absolutely. As far as characters, okay, we saw the cane. Let's see, JohnBirckhead has a cane from
Mysidia.
I want to say, okay, Mysidia. I missed the Mysidia checks. Watching Funnel's boss fights there.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember who else was there, and I'm coming up empty.
Based on the fact he didn't take the character,
Right.
definitely not a Cecil.
Definitely not Edge.
Yeah, definitely not Cecil or Edge. I would say with since we're carrying the ladies and getting them experience, could be, yeah, Fiery Blizzard saying Yang. Yeah. Yang is one of those you definitely want to pick up for a slingshot, and I think we have Funnelcakes is going to go there, so we're about to see it. Thanks for humoring me there, Chad, as I went through that mental exercise. Yeah, that was a Yang.
We've got a moment of retread as our runners cross over each other. Thank you once again, RPG Limit Break, for letting us show off free enterprise here. Always appreciate you having us over. Neobari is handling restream duties for us, rolled this, and is bringing us the action from our runners directly to you. And our tracker, Fiery Blizzard, answering the questions that we lost track of in comms and keeping all the buttons lit up. Thank you all.
Funnelcakes has his party in hand, except for the watery pass and Dempsey and white mages. So now I'm interested to see kind of what he does with this, because you got a couple choices here. Definitely want to go for the Baron bosses, but I'm curious to see now. Okay, what do you do if this early Darkness Crystal is not playing out?
Yeah, you can try and full clear the overworld, especially when you get to some of the slower checks. That becomes a judgment call. With 8 bosses, if you leave one behind, you better find the other 7. But on the other hand, things like Twin Harp and Package, if they show up, it's tough to take the time on those.
Yeah, right now both our runners are kind of retracing each other's steps, but if I had to call an early lead, Funnelcake's use of just duoing with the Foo through the early checks and getting that Fire 3 before going up Ordeals. JohnBirckhead took a little bit of extra time getting through those Ordeals bosses and just now got the Fire 3 on Foo. So that could turn out to be, I've seen plenty of races in this format, my own included, that come down to the 90 to 120 seconds you may or may not save at places like Ordeals and on some other checks.
And it doesn't sound, if you just stop and think about it intuitively, it doesn't necessarily sound like a big time save. But really what it is just that Fu is such a more powerful character than everyone else early game that everyone else is just parrying around effectively or making very light swings that just aren't impactful to these early fights. Fu can just steamroll them. And if you've got less people taking actions other than Fu, you've got a lot more efficiency dealing with these fights.
Yep, absolutely. But JohnBirckhead's still heading down Mount Ordeals with his hook. So we'll see what his next move is.
Funnelcakes finding a white mage. A little back and forth, and yeah, we are just waiting for one of our runners to show us something new. A rat tail turn in, a dive on Dwarf Castle, or a charge down the hook route.
Yeah, and Funnelcakes dismissing the Yang, so looking like maybe kind of setting up for, I don't know. You could do Reflect with Fu, Rosa Porum, and then you could even swap that Yang out later if you happen to want to use the machine for your grind towards the end game rather than early. So that may be what Funnel's going for here.
Yeah, it could work. I mean, on the one hand, Nuke White is not the most ideal of Reflect strats, White having that longer caster time, but you make do with what you've got, and our alternatives for some sort of hybrid right now are Kane, which we'd better find an Avenger or a Dragoon Lance or a Defense Sword. Now, granted, we're on T Wildish, so there's a good chance that we have it, but we don't have the really heavy melee damage that you really like to lean into for these kinds of strats.
Right, and with the way you're setting up, you almost want Sid for that anchor, so you're not going to have a whole lot of melee damage unless you work out a different configuration later.
Yeah, if you do that slingshot on Yang like you were talking about, you might get him to the point where he's able to bring some heavy damage.
I've actually done that before to great effect to kind of salvage a otherwise sketchy Reflect party. Get Yang to throw a couple powers in there before you push over that 40k on the Z fight, and yeah, it's serviceable. Not optimal, but serviceable.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, in advance of that Z fight, since we're likely to see those sorts of tactics, let's talk a little bit about why all this works. So, this, again, system limitations. You can only put so big a value in numbers. And so Zeromus has a starting amount of hit points that's much lower than the total that's wanted. So partway through, he refills his hit points and goes into a new phase of attacking. But reflected spells don't trigger that, so you can cut off a lot of the fight by using reflected damage, as long as once you reach a certain point, you stop dealing direct damage.
Once again, masterfully taught there, Commander. Yeah, and one of the more interesting dynamics of this flag set has been when you get this party that's not obvious Reflect and definitely not obvious Berserking. What do you do with it? And admittedly, I've lost a few races because not because I was slower than my opponent at beating the seed, but my opponent's choice of power overwhelming path was just slightly faster than mine. So, yeah, this will be interesting to watch as this race unfolds.
Yeah, and especially at the level that our runners are at now, having made it this far, there are so many decisions and so many skills that come into play. And when, as you alluded to earlier, a race can come down to 90 seconds or less, it's being able to bring all of those pieces and knowledge together that really show off what someone that's gotten very good at this game can do. Chat commenting 1800 nuke, or in other words, nuke was in the last 3 spells that Fusoya learned.
That tends to happen. Every once in a while, you'll get a nice, 12 or 1300, get it super early. This is an exciting find in the bear and trash can here, a twin heart.
Oh my.
So now, how much do you stretch out looking for a potential early grind? Baron Key is one thing. Going and checking that twin harp is another. And I don't know if we're going to see that from Funnelcakes. This looks like a stop off at Dwarf Castle to get some more loot levels.
Seems that way, but I'm missing that rat tail on Funnelcake's side. Still hasn't gone to check in with Bedward.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when he routes that in. I've not known Funnelcakes to forget something like a Bedward, so I'm just kind of waiting to see when he decides to route it in.
Yep, all in good time. There's a lot of different ways to route the overworld in this flag set.
Yeah, but I like what Funnel's doing here. Seeing if we've got any goodies for Kane, getting some critical levels on Kane and Rosa. Opting right now for what looks like a Polearm Anchor since she's still at 110 HP.
Kaboom. Down they go. Fully powered Foo, which is almost where Funnelcakes is going to handle these. Well, if we had a Cecil, that would be exciting, but instead it's a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, no Cecil is a guarantee for multiple crystal swords to be available and up for grabs in the seed. I think my last non-Cecil seed had 3 crystal swords.
Yeah, also going to Ebling Castle is a good guarantee. The items in Free Enterprise are sorted by tiers, and the highest tier, tier 8, there's a decent chance you're going to pull one of those in an Ebling Castle trap chest. Unfortunately, with the no adamants flag on, there are exactly 2 items in tier 8, the crystal sword we just saw and the Excalibur, which is also only equipped to Cecil.
And Ribbon Quest in chat beating me to the punch. Yes, we did find a power shirt for Kane. That's huge. If we get a decent enough weapon, as Commander said, either a defense sword or Avenger sword or one of those high-end the in-game spears, Dragoon or White, Kane can become a good berserker to kind of get through some of the rest of the seed.
Chat answering chat questions. Thank you.
Why I love being a commentator for this community. So much to keep track of, so many exciting things to talk about. And then if I'm missing something somebody wants to know, chat's got my back. So I appreciate all of you.
Here. The Free Enterprise community is a wonderful community, full of a lot of helpful folks. Oh my goodness, Crystal Sword 2. I'm shocked. Shocked, I say.
Yep. Not only are you shocked, the Leviathan on Birckhead's side is now shocked and still trying to rack up those foo spells on his side.
Yeah. JohnBirckhead choosing to leave the loot alone in there, which is fine. Looting takes time, and although the loot in that location's a bit more valuable than most other spots, you only have so much time.
Yeah, at this point, I think Funnelcakes continuing is more about the levels on his party than the loot. But definitely the holy swords that are not usable by anyone in the party could very well fund that Gungnir Spear for Kane and make him somewhat serviceable if we don't find anything else.
Yeah, Gungnir will do for mid-tier. It'll carry you through a lot of what you want to do. And if you're going for shops, it's about the best you're going to find unless you take the time to forge.
Bush is coming out trying to get those levels for that Dragoon. He's taking a lot of hits. the AI here not being friendly to getting Kane experience.
Sometimes it gets moody that way, but Funnelcakes is able to persevere. Sid takes a hit. And we have a Moonveil. Moonveil's a very nice item. It'll help you for one battle, but it will put a wall up that'll last twice as long as that of a Starveil, and it'll also put a barrier status on you that will cause all of the physical attacks coming your way to completely miss. If that Ogo's in an angry spot and we've got some elixirs or cure 3s, that might be enough for one person to carry that fight.
Yep, definitely with a power shirt for Kane. So now Funnelcake's going to see that rat tail.
Yep, and I imagine a quick turn-in of that is in order, which is quite possibly where JohnBirckhead is heading as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see if Birkhead goes for Dwarf Castle as well, or if they end up just completely converging and they're both going down the hook route at the same time.
Yeah, for this party, I think they're definitely happier about the untrapped chests in Evelyn Castle than the trapped chests.
That's our second power shirt.
You know?
Oh, okay. So yeah, this is where I'm like, this is me. I start really questioning my party decisions, and
Yang says,
Yang.
right? Yang says, I'd love that power shirt. Yang, even more so than a lot of other melee characters, because of how his damage formula is calculated, benefits from strength boosting gear, and that power shirt adds 15 to strength, which is as good as it gets from one item.
Yeah, and both power shirts for both Kane and Yang. And that's exactly where JohnBirckhead is going. Yeah, I like that. I think with the party that I have now and the fact that it does take time. Oh wait, no, we did not. We did not get.
Oh,
we did not get Yang.
Edward can wear a power shirt.
Birkhead maybe counting on finding that spoon or Eddie Anchor or.
I'll have to see how it plays out. The spoon in the vanilla game is just a dart with maximum attack power, but as a homage to one of the best lines in Final Fantasy, where Tella refers to Edward as a spoony bard. Here, when the appropriate flag is on, as it is now, Edward can equip the spoon and cause significant havoc.
Yes, he can. Also, Fire Blue, we're talking about the agility situation with 9 versus 20. Without getting too far into the relative agility math, yeah, a 9 agility anchor with a 20 agility foo is not optimal. However, we do have a ninja hat that was found somewhere, and I believe both our runners got it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it would let foo be RA2, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but as you say, not the RA1 that we're always looking for. But it won't take many levels on Edward for him to get to the point where Foo's RA, that's relative agility, starts going up and up, which means acting slower and slower.
Yeah, but what I was getting into is if this is me and I'm seeing both of those power shirts, I'm thinking very strongly about going for 10 key items. Hopefully by the time I got 10 key items, I got that Darkness Crystal. Go do a quick D money to get my white mages all up to their complete spell list and slingshot that yacht. Then you've got a serviceable hybrid at that point.
Yeah, that's definitely a valid approach, and I could understand either of our runners going for it if that's what they had decided to do.
Yeah, but I think I called Birkhead's play here. Birkhead is shooing Evelyn Castle to gain back a little bit of that time he lost on Mount Ordeals, and now we've got a foot race in Upper Babel.
Yeah, and we've got a Demas waiting at the second spot, all 25,200 hit points of it, Cycling through those mist phases, Fu's gonna speed this fight up, but I'll be a bit impressed if either of our runners can take it down without a mist phase.
Yeah, Plumeria and I chiming in. Fu needs more than 2 full impulse to take care of the D-Mist. Yeah, it would definitely help if we had a Soma drop. We definitely need. I see 4 elixirs on Funnelcakes side, so that's no problem. And there's an objective at the King Queen spot.
You know, this spot can be very rude, and, you know, these Baron Guards are going to get 2 swings, and they're going to be punchy swings. This spot goes by a relatively consistent rule in that if the boss here normally doesn't swing, then when a boss shows up that does use physical attacks, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, Birckhead finding out Swag Meteor may not be the way to go here.
Yeah. The 2 swings, like, an ordinary boss here is bad enough. But the fact that there are 2 opponents here means that it is swinging twice as fast as, say, an Evil Wall would be if it was here.
Yeah, I was about to say, there you go, Funnelcakes. So where was that coffin? Oh, I know I saw coffin come across the boot screens.
Oof. Oh, the piggy counter, which, you know, fine.
Then Birckhead gets the stone off and he's through, so now it's and it's gonna be they're down on Funnelcake's side too, so now we've got and there's Nuke on Funnelcake's Fu, and we've got a D-Mist race here.
Birckhead lowering the battle speed a little bit. Both runners making their preparations. Are either of them going to save? Funnelcake says no, I'm going right in.
Same with Birckhead. So this is awesome. We've got dueling D-Mist fights on the hook route. Both Fusoyas with nukes, so they won't be unbearably slow. But yeah, it's still going to take some fancy menuing here to get through this optimally.
Funnelcake's preserving his anchor, making sure Porm doesn't get any XP. Didn't have to worry about that in that last spot. It's a fight that doesn't give any XP.
Unfortunately, I think we're missing Blink for Rosa on both sides.
Yeah, which would definitely be helpful. You cast Blink on someone and the next 2 physical attacks miss, and unless you take a swing at D-Mist with a fight command in the Mist phase, physical attacks are all you're going to get.
Yeah, but there's only 3 swings per phase on D-Mist, and 1800 HP in Fu's pool. Should be able to weather it, even if D-Mist is extra rude and hits Fu 3 times. There's plenty of time in that Mist phase to bring it back up.
Which is undoubtedly where our runners didn't feel the need to save. Struggle a little bit with keeping people up for all of the experience, but it's unlikely that they're going to lose this fight to D-Mist.
JohnBirckhead with significantly fewer elixirs in his inventory, but that one might be enough to get through most of the fight here.
And he's opting for some virus as well. Get in a little tick damage and also use a little bit less MP.
Oh, we're already through.
Well then, okay. A quick dismantling of a high hit point D-Mist by JohnBirckhead, and he'll be our first runner underground. Funnelcakes should not be far behind.
Nope, not at all. I have to say that definitely looks a lot less stressful than the panic and dart everything with edge strats that I've done in this spot.
Hey, darting things with edge for speed is valid.
I was ruminating on Demas fights and missed that top of tower spot. Thankfully, Funnelcakes is going to give me a second look at it. Fiery Blizzard, once again, on point. The Dark Elf, thank you very much.
So not an objective, and without a tower key, I imagine that's going to get put off for quite some time.
Yeah, Keyless Tower, especially with non-objective boss, I'm definitely not a fan of Keyless Tower in general, and especially in this flag set when it's not a required boss at the top of there.
Instead, we can head over to Dwarf Castle. We've talked about that warp glitch, and with that in play, clearing out Dwarf Castle gives you 2 bosses and 2 key item checks, so a lot of value to be had here.
Yep, Birckhead wasting no time going in there. Meanwhile, Funnelcakes about to get the Falcon out of the ground, not far behind. See if we are in lockstep or we get Divergence. Likely not, because there's no pan right now, so you definitely want to see if you can spike that pan before you head down to the Fame March or Sylph Cave and take on those damage tiles.
Yeah. If nothing shows up here in Dwarf Castle to change things, I would imagine Feymarch is the next stop. Get the free key item there, take a look at the 2 bosses there, see if they're objectives or something free that you want to tussle with in the hopes of picking up a key item. I'm okay, let's go and do some shopping.
Yeah, you definitely want to do... I like doing my shopping in Dwarf pre-fight if I'm not too worried about the spot, because you can save a lot of time by just doing the warp glitch, grabbing your key item, and then just exiting out.
Yeah, it's very efficient, makes a lot of sense. Seed's still trying to tell our runners maybe you should take Yang. There's some cat claws there. It'd be awesome. Just consider it. Asura showing off the hit points in this spot. Close to 9,000. Weathers a nuke from Fu says you're going to have to try harder than that, old man.
Yes, Asura definitely not to be trifled with in some spots unless you're well prepared. But a couple of spell casts, Birckhead is through, and we get to see who is in the goal best spot.
Drum roll. Oh, it's Val. Speaking of people you don't want to see in ruder locations.
Yeah, runner talking here. I love seeing Val in this spot.
Yes. There are a lot of spots where Val in tornado form just laughs at your attempts to use magic, and as we've seen, magic is how we've been getting through a lot of things. And yes, your math is right there, Concussed Gamer. All of those items would give plus 40 to strength.
So now you've seen the Valvalis. You've seen, well, I think Birckhead may be about to see all the strength gear for Yang. How tempted do you get? Still no high-end game weapon. How tempted do you get to make that swap as the underground goes on here?
I think you need a slingshot. I'd want Darkness Crystal and a slingshot. Oh, and sorry, Concussed Gamer, it's 30 strength. 5 for each claw is 10, 5 for the ring is 15, and 15 for the power shirt makes it 30. You go to Zeus Gauntlets to get to 35, and a headband or a bandana takes us to 40.
And to more muddy the waters, the Seal Cave key item obtained with our warp glitch is the spoon.
Nice.
So now you've got an Eddie sitting there in your party, just waiting to be slingshotted. Let's see what Birckhead does with this.
You know, if we could find an Avenger, we could rapidly pivot to a hybrid party. Just go Yang, Kane, Eddie, Fu, and White Mage of choice.
Yeah, that would definitely work. Or just yeah, uh, those three melee and food with a just an anchor. That's more than enough.
True. Fu can be our white mage.
But we've also found plenty of objective bosses on our path so far, and we still have a lot to check. Um, you find that darkness crystal at 4 out of 7, 5 out of 7. It starts burning a hole in your pocket to get up to that moon pronto.
Yeah, it can be a little trickier without a pass in hand. That flight up to the moon with the whale and then walking through the LST and then flying back down to Earth. If you don't have all 7 bosses there, just all that travel time, you think about trying to route things efficiently, and that can make you flinch.
Yeah, I know a lot of runners, myself included, have kind of taken to the meta of if you don't have the pass, maybe go peek the Zop one check. If you don't have Earth Crystal yet, peek the Twin Harp. Then maybe see if the Giant is there, because then if you hit and get to 5 or 6 out of 7, then your trip through the LST is a lot more appealing.
Yeah, with the number of boss spots there are to check on the moon, 2 is a reasonable number to expect in terms of number of bosses there that are actually objectives, but we've seen plenty of times in this tournament where it's been less than that.
And now we have Birckhead taking eggs and looking to be getting some levels on that Eddie, so we're pivoting to Spoonward here.
Okay, we can... A slingshot will still work on this. Eddie can get double XP until he catches up. So 1, maybe 2 eggs he'll slingshot off of, and then start working his way up. You're not going to see good hit point totals on Edward. His hit point curve is abysmal.
And these eggs this early will also kind of serve us well. It also makes up for the lack of experience by fading Dwarf Castle. And it could also set us up to take on some other spots for key items if necessary. So if we see something at that Fade March maybe that we could handle, especially if it's one of our objectives, or if you want to go up to the top of the tower for that Dark Elf, a few more levels help a lot there.
Definitely. The more levels you get, the more power people hit with. And the Fey March spots come along late enough in the vanilla game that they're pretty powerful spots to tangle with.
Oh, this could be spicy. Moonsparkle Blue Robe.
Is it the Water Hag or is it our Gauntlet objective?
That's our Gauntlet.
Okay. So we have the alt Gauntlet flag on in this tournament, which means that when we face the Gauntlet, which is the fight that normally shows up in Fabul, we don't get the normal fights that are there. We instead get the 5 fights in the encounter table for whatever area corresponds to the boss. This is one of the floors in the Cave of Summons.
This conjurer got off the summon, and it's the Arachne. That can spit out a pretty powerful Quake spell.
Yeah, it can. Hourglass is up, but was the Quake queued, or are we good? Oh, yeah, that
looks like we were good from a magic defense perspective.
Yeah, shrugged it off. So, Hourglass gonna buy us some time to do whatever it is we feel we need to do with this fight.
It looked like Funnelcakes trying to conserve MP there, not going for the immediate nuke on that conjure. Although, yeah, I would just burn the nukes, and then you've got Rosa sitting there that can aim some mute arrows if you want to do that.
Oh, and, 5 coffins in the inventory. That'll be helpful here, too. But sooner or later, we're going to face the Clappers with their Blitz.
Yeah, and that could be trouble. That could be trouble. We don't really have. We don't have Dragoon Spear for Kane. We don't have Artemis Arrows for Rosa. So we're going to be relying on food spells at that point. That could be. Uh-oh. We have one summoned as well.
Yeah, now, thankfully, Sorcerer Robes protect against lightning damage. So that Blitz is an HP-based attack, similar to the Ogopogo's Wave. So the lightning resistance will be very welcome. Or it could just be dodged. That will allow that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Funnelcakes discovering, however, that Claffords are unimpressed by the coffins. It's going to have to find a different way. We will get the job done.
Yeah, Funnelcakes is definitely well prepared for this fight. Not going to have any trouble. Just a slight bump in the road.
JohnBirckhead is taking care of enough eggs for now and is on his way down to the Gauntlet. Gonna pick up that adamant rock from the freebie spot first.
Interested to see how well Birckhead is going to do with this Gauntlet. May have a slightly harder time. He's got significantly more levels on his forum, so the anchoring situation now that he's leveled that he's going to be a little bit dicey.
And Funnelcakes appreciating every single one of those blitz dodged as it hits Sid for a full 50% of his hit points, but he is through. And not only is that his 5th objective, but it's a great stick for Kane to hit things with.
Yep. Now we've definitely got a setup that is worthy of a hybrid party.
Spoon Word, Defense Sword Kane. Yeah, good times, good times. Although, we don't have Spoon Word for Funnelcakes yet. We don't have that, do we? It's only Birckhead?
No, Funnelcakes has a spoon, but yeah, definitely has the Bard is still in Mysidia.
Gotcha. Alright. So it's mostly Kane, a little help from it. Sid carrying this melee. Birckhead checking the sparkle first, sees that it's D-lunars. That's not an objective.
Yeah, it's not an objective. Might be do, although the punches you have to weather to do the reflect breath strat on this D-lunar fight are many, and you don't want to be punched that much in the Leviathan spot if you can help it.
Yeah, and if it's not a punch, it's a fire attack, which is yet another attack in Free Enterprise that deals damage based on the max HP of its target, and this one hits everybody.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't like it as far as having to take the fight, but I think you almost have to if you're in the runner situation right now. Still no pan. So once you leave here, your only options are just Sheila 1, walking through Sylph Cave, the Twin Heart, and Keyless Tower. So yeah, I can see why our runners are kind of inclined to take this fight right now.
Yeah, it does make sense, especially since you've already taken one of them in the form of that football gauntlet. You get through this, and you never have to come back. But, you know, it's time consuming. And it's going to take a little bit of work to get through.
Yeah, critical point here for Funnelcakes. We've got to make sure we get through, or we're able to heal, because now every attack is going to counter with that fire. Plus, you still get the punches. Looks like we got either some undead or dragon resistance on Rosa's side. Hitting only for 1 damage.
I'd have to look. Sork Robe guards against the undead, so that could be the answer. So the breath, it hits with every status effect in the book, but it's also coded such that it ignores boss immunity. So when it's reflected back, it can actually transform the D-lunars.
Yep. And now he's just a harmless little frog, and just a matter of time to chew through the HP pool.
We'll get a little bit of help from that by bringing Kane up. Being in toad status, these are going to take even more damage from the swing, and there we go.
Well, Birckhead working through that gauntlet is on the summon clapper fight. Making use of those mute arrows from Rosa, the spoon from Edward, with jumping from Kane. Everybody contributing here. Birckhead almost through this gauntlet.
And we have a lot of potential value from the D-lunars as they're holding the Earth Crystal.
That's a nice pickup. That gives us one more boss we could check, because that one's always open, but gives you way more incentive to go check it now. And also, we could be raiding a treasury here in a few minutes.
Yeah, treasury's a tough call, though, don't you think? I mean, I can't say, I hate it, definitely go past, but I also am like, what am I hoping for in there?
Yeah, tough call, because we do have that defense sword. We've got 2 power shirts. Yeah, do you want to spend the time digging for an Avenger or maybe even a Dragoon Spear? Yeah, semifinal race, yeah, doubtful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on offense, that's all I'm really begging is Avenger, or like you said, maybe Dragoon Spear. Like, it would almost be better for defensive items, maybe some ribbons or some protector crystal rings, but I'm not sure if you stop in just for that.
Yeah, chat's pointing out we've also got some caster gear too with Life Staff and Charm on, so.
Yeah. But Sheila won first. See what this is. JohnBirckhead, however, is going to take a run up Keyless Tower.
I don't hate it. It is definitely off the beaten path. You're pretty much taking a gamble when you do this, but we got to hold that thought. We've got a vanilla pan on Funnelcakes' side.
Oh, one of my favorite vanillas is the pan. Although an even more favorite vanilla of mine we might be seeing with JohnBirckhead, the Tower Key.
Yeah, Tower Key into an objective boss or a Darkness Crystal would be huge for Birckhead. So both our runners kind of, maybe showing us, hey, this could be the Divergence that decides this race.
Yeah, 5 out of 7. We're closing in on the end, although we do still need Z access. We got to find that Darkness Crystal or pass somewhere along the way. So these key item checks are really becoming valuable for that. And since Funnelcakes is in the area, might as well go ahead and check music. If you don't check it now, when are you going to check it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you're some people that play this game, the answer is never is when you're going to check it. But Funnelcakes, clearly not one of them.
Yeah, I don't know. If I'm weighing a bunch of checks I don't like, especially if I'm on restream, I like to go to the heart. I like to get the music on there. Also gives me, if I'm sitting there listening to the music, it kind of gives me a minute to kind of collect my thoughts. Like, all right, yeah, this is the one of the end checks I really didn't want to do, but I'm going to do it. And now, okay, what am I going to do after this? What do I do if this hits? What do I do if this zonks? The music is a good time to kind of collect those thoughts.
Yeah, being able to use that downtime to figure out those sorts of things is very helpful. Here we come, up to a Dark Elf that's going to mock us mercilessly before we turn the show over to Edward recuperating in Troya.
Got a lovely HP ran out perished on that Dark Elf fight. Well played, Funnelcakes.
At least it was only one.
Oof. Only Artemis arrows for that Dark Elf fight on JohnBirckhead's side, so that's gonna prove costly.
Yeah, doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate the gamble because Keyless Tower is something that not many runners like to do in that particular situation, and if it hits, you're gonna be hard pressed to lose that lead. Can't really fault him, just didn't play out the way he had hoped.
And some fine music. Didn't explain too much there, but we randomized the harp song. We don't ever know what song we're going to get, which is why the check is so exciting. Even better when there's a pass as the key item and one of our objectives is the boss. Love to see so much value from a harp check.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the path, this kind of changes the dynamic a little bit. You've got an Earth Crystal. You have a non-zero chance of not needing the Darkness Crystal here.
Yeah, and now we're up to 9 key items. I know it looks like 10, but even though the pass is in a key item location, it does not count as one of 10 key items for double XP. But we're getting close to endgame. 6 out of 7 bosses, 9 key items, and Z access. Big value at Twin Harp.
Yeah, that value at Twin Heart definitely puts Funnelcakes squarely in the lead unless Birckhead is able to come up with a check of his own to equalize.
Yeah, with 8 bosses and only 7 needed, you don't have to go this exact same route as your opponent, but you definitely want to find the quickest route, and that Twin Harp has been available for quite some time.
Birckhead goes and turns that pan, or excuse me, hits Yon with the pan at Sylph Cave to find a pink tail, and then this looks like we're going to follow the pan sequence the whole way through here. And now I want to see if Birckhead drops a save at. No, he's not. Yeah, in this situation, I like to drop a save at Troy right now, especially. Yeah, if I think I'm going to go check that harp or even Zot, because then if Sheila 2 does not pan out, you can just reset out instead of having to walk all the way back through Football Castle.
I see what you did there, and I approve.
Well, we wanted to talk about an equalizer. That could be it.
So this, Birckhead might not find that Mylon Z. Birckhead might say, I've got 5 out of 7. I've got good odds of finding 2 on the moon. Let's roll.
This Zot 2 boss could make or break the race right here, too. If this Zot 2 boss is an objective, lights out.
Yeah, but if it's not, then Funnelcakes is going to have to run those pan checks to get that Darkness Crystal. Birckhead planning a Zot 1 before running to the moon? Is that what we're seeing here? Looks like it.
Yeah, what's been known as the Rex banner has become pretty much the meta here for Blue Moon lately. Zatu is just a Rubicante. Not a tough boss fight here, but not the one we were looking for.
Yeah, so Funnelcakes, probably going to run the pan checks. I would definitely do that to completion before running Keyless Tower. Gets that Darkness Crystal. And we'll probably be going to the moon a little bit after JohnBirckhead, even with the time that he's taking to check this boss. Unless, as chat's pointing out, the key item from this check opens up something else on Earth.
Yep, Birckhead resets right out of the dolls, and probably going to go see a lunar well at this point. Sadly, only Moonveil number 2 on Funnelcakes side.
Zot not giving value. So Birckhead says, yep, I'm off to the moon at 5 out of 7. I'm good with that. Funnelcakes being at 6 out of 7 and with a pass in hand. A lot more interested in full clearing the Earth, just trying to skip that altogether.
Yeah, in Funnelcake's situation, definitely the play I would make. Especially with 6 out of 7 and a passive hand.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Is go mode in the basement? That's a big nope.
And unfortunately for Funnelcakes, he's feeling like he's got to take this fight, because again, that we know where that Darkness Crystal is. Funnelcakes does not.
True. And Funnelcakes not having that pink tail is one key item short of JohnBirckhead's total, and that means he's at 9 out of 10.
Okay, seeing some float strats.
Yeah. The wall that CPU puts up means that you can't hit him with a lot of magic, and despite the fact that those orbs are not stationary, they are not floating. You can hit the whole group with Quake. But the problem is that the CPU has a lot more hit points than the attacker and defender, and when he loses his friends, he reacts with a vengeance.
Yep, Globe 199, pretty much instant death in, I want to say virtually any spot, but probably just any spot.
Especially this spot. It is a magic power based attack, and this spot is no slouch on that value.
And
Birckhead
Birckhead,
Go ahead.
oh, excuse me. Yeah, Birckhead, definitely talking about the route Sands Pass earlier in the seed. JohnBirckhead following that and checking that giant before diving the LST. Again, 5 out of 7 for Birckhead, not 6. So this is a pretty common check at this particular situation, because if you have 1 in the giant, then that's much better odds for your LST containing your 7.
Yeah, but this is one of the last things you do in the game. So the spots here are no slouch. We're going to see what bosses are here. You'd be happy to find a boss here, but at the same time, wincing a little bit.
But yeah, chat talking about is it D-money? No, I don't. I could be wrong, but yeah, this is definitely for bosses. Yeah, Birckhead's going up here checking.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was going D-money, yeah, it'd look a lot different. I think the Yang swap was for was for Anchor. Oh, look at that.
So this is rude for a lot of reasons. This spot has a lot of hit points. It does not have very impressive magic power, so you're not really worried about Golbez defeating you here. But you do feel a little bad about how long the fight is going to take you to get through it.
Yeah, we have a spoony bard with a power shirt, so mitigated that a little bit on Birkhead's side here.
Yeah, and you've got to be a little trickier. There are at the beginning of the fight, um, Golbez paralyzes your party, and there are a lot of status effects you can use to ignore that. A common tactic is to cast the status effects beforehand, but since this is a spot that gives you a full heal, that doesn't do you any good. But JohnBirckhead, very wisely anticipating all of those issues, and made sure to set things up so that Fu could put Venom on his party during the fight.
Yeah, now as he's going through this, Birkhead's got to remember that you got to take that poison status off of at least Eddie if you're planning on zerking him.
Yeah, the fight's long enough that damage by poison could actually be a real consideration.
Not even so much damage, but the Berserker status is not even going to stick if poison status is off. Thanks to, again, our game that is coded lovely and uses things called stat priorities so that sometimes multiple stats applied in the wrong order won't work.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Meanwhile, Funnelcakes has gone through the pan checks while we've been watching this giant and has found that darkness crystal. So will Funnelcakes go LST or giant first?
6 out of 7, I would bet giant, but we shall see.
First, we need to go make some omelets.
Omelets. Bring up the main damage dealer, guy who's been carrying this seat on his back the whole time. Bring out the nukes. So we're effectively in our own no mode up here. I'm watching in chat. We've seen 7 different bosses. We know a way that our runners could go to get their crystal.
You are correct. Golbez being the 7th that we saw, and then the Myloncy in Cave Magnus would be Birkhead's 7th.
Yeah, Funnelcakes leveling up his porn that last. I'm guessing that we're gonna see a swap to a character that's sitting in the Cydia now for the anchor after the grind.
Yeah, but I think both runners may go for that base level Yang. I think he starts with 8 agility, which is right at one of those Zeromus relative agility breakpoints that you want to hit.
Yeah, 28 is the first one. That'll put Zeromus at RA2, and it's a spot a lot of runners like to go for if they don't have a slow enough anchor to keep everyone in their party at RA1.
Yeah, and looks like Birkhead has not been able to set up Berserk on that Eddie, so just relying on nukes from Fu and manual swings with the spoon.
It's a slog. The hit points at this spot are at the maximum. And in some other spots with high magic power, you can count on Golbez to help you along with the reflected spells, but we're seeing here just how weak the spell casting is.
Yeah, Plumeria Knight in chat echoing the sentiment at the same time. Yeah, and it's kind of going back to what I mentioned on Mount Ordeals. Just the slightly more efficient fights for Funnelcakes could come into play if Birkhead goes Cave Magnus to get that Mylon, Funnelcakes goes Giant to get that Golbez. The seat comes down to the fight efficiency at that point.
JohnBirckhead does get the goal best to crumble after a hard-fought battle. He's now at 6 of 7, tied with Funnelcakes. Are we going to have an Ogopogo here at this giant? Is it hard required? We'll find out shortly.
One of those ever valuable tents first.
Yeah, nice thing about the tent is if you've got someone face down that you want to stay as an anchor, the tent will not revive them.
Big check coming up here for JohnBirckhead.
Tense moment, and a seed that has already delivered a lot of them.
Wrong Moon Sparkle.
Just impaled him, but, you know, Birckhead can't be upset about finding a boss. Besides, it's faster to warp out than deal with that spark that paled him, and that's a fair call.
Yeah, at this point though, I don't see, unless I'm faked out again, I don't see Birckhead going to Cave Magnus for that Mylon. This is 6 out of 7, no pass, Darkness Crystal. That's just that screams go face check the LSD. I would be very surprised if I get faked out here and he doesn't do that.
Yeah, and I think Funnelcakes is going to be on the same thought whenever he's done with his eggs. So I don't see him finding that Golbez at the Giant. Birckhead's going to get to the LST first. But are they both going to check it in the same order?
6 out of 7, I have a really hard time not going top down. 6 out of 7.
Wait a minute. Where are you going, JohnBirckhead? Because that's not the LST. Baron Basement check real fast? Sure.
I don't hate it. That if it hits, then okay, that's that much quicker you found it. But we know that's not it.
Yeah, we know Magnus is the Earth check that Birckhead wants, even though Birckhead doesn't know. Plumeria Knight, JohnBirckhead did save. Can confirm. Yeah, not even key item hunting here. Says, I got no time for you. And now we're off to the moon. Well, chat commenting that why not Harp if you're also doing basement? Harp takes a lot longer. You gotta walk down Cave Magnus, you gotta listen to Dark Elf taunt you, you've gotta wait for Eddie to crawl out of bed, you've gotta wait for the song to play. It's very time consuming.
Yeah, Harp not one of the longer checks on Earth that I roll the dice with. I'll tend if I'm gonna do that and try to get a leg up on the race. I tend to go for the Luca, but yeah, the Harp is just it's too long of a cutscene.
Yeah, Luca's another nice quick check. You walk down, you save just shy of the boss, and then you look and especially with Warp Glitch on, you've already gotten the key item. If the boss is of no value to, you're out. JohnBirckhead doing as you predicted, setting up outside of Cave Bahamut, which we know as Cave Value here in the community. Let's see if it lives up to its name.
Yep, Funnelcakes raising the lunar whale on his side, so slightly behind in getting to the moon, but Funnelcakes is all set up with Zeromus levels, and I think JohnBirckhead is just a little shy. I need to get a look at his screen after that Golbez fight, but I don't think he's quite Zeromus ready yet.
Low 40s, so yeah, a little bit on the outside. Slightly better melee party, like Cecil or Edge, and I'd be feeling good about this party now, but I agree, given the makeup, I think he's a little short.
Cake's having a hard time evaluating an anchor here. Those two, Eddie and Young, aren't at base level on this side. Young has Young's level 11. Eddie looked like That's the 14.
Something like that. Agreed. It's not quite ideal.
But yeah, in that situation though, yeah, you take the Yon. I mean, even if Yon goes up, Yon probably goes up to 9 agility at level 11, but still 9 is definitely serviceable for a Z fight.
Yeah, everyone but Fu should be RA1, and if you've got enough people jumping into the queue at RA1, the fact that he's RA2 won't matter. Oh hey, there's a rude boss we don't want to fight. Why is Kainazo so rude on the moon?
Kainatsu is incredibly rude on the moon because he has, you've talked about these all seat, Commander, the HP based attacks. Although this HP based attack is not based on the target's HP, it is based on the user's HP. And these moon spots, the bosses have a lot of HP, so waves really, really, really hurt unless you are able to get a Zerker up or cast multiple nukes and cut into that HP pool. So yeah, we're very happy we don't have to fight a Kainatsu on the moon in this scene.
Perfectly explained. That is exactly why Kainazo was so rude on the moon. And, you know, chat, probably a little disappointed that Kainazo was not an objective, but, you know, hopefully Ogo can satisfy the rowdier elements amongst the audience.
Yeah, and Kainatsu is definitely one of those interesting fights when you have to take it at a rude spot. Because you can get around the wave attack by using a lightning-based attack after he has gathered the water, but before he queues up the wave. And so there's a little bit of a art to the timing of that, especially depending on what you set your battle speed to. So it's very interesting from a spectator standpoint if a runner has to take a Kainatsu in one of those spots.
Yeah, that small window and that tension is exactly what makes it so interesting, because even if you see the Thor Rage land, you're still wondering, was it fast enough? Was it fast enough?
Yeah, and if you're an aspiring free enterprise runner and you plan on doing some T-Pro formats, you would be well served to practice your difficult Kainatsu fights.
Absolutely. Hey, it's Keblin and Queblin at the Crystal Sword Altar. No time for that.
Crystal Sword Altar is free, but not what we want to see right now.
We've got 3 more chances at this Ogo. Not guaranteed to find him up here. The panic would be very real for both of our runners if they got down to the bottom of this moon and came up missing on their objectives.
Yeah, we still have 3 gating key items out there that we haven't found yet. Package, Tower Key, and Luca Key. JohnBirckhead is also missing the Earth Crystal, if I'm reading that display right.
Yeah, JohnBirckhead not tangling with those D-lunars, which is why he's gotten down this moon a little bit faster. But also, for that reason, missed out on that Earth Crystal.
And again, we know it's not a hit, but Birckhead does not know that. That is our Blarg in the Ribbon Room. Another boss our runners are thankful they do not have to tangle with. For now. We have gating key items out. If we don't find this boss, the Wyvern is probably one of the first things you do for 2 key item checks.
Right. But that then becomes the question. Do you, since you're already on the moon, do you start digging around for key items, or do you go back to some of those things you faded? I feel like, yeah, you dig at this spot for the moon, especially that King-Queen Eblin fight. And sure enough, we have a haunted moon. 0 out of the 6 bosses are objectives.
Birckhead staying here, taking fights. Didn't plan to leave a save on the Earth and check that Cave Magnus spot. That's unfortunate.
It does make sense, though. You know, like, honestly, I could see it either way. I'd have a hard time arguing with either call. you're already on the moon. You've already walked down. If the key item, if the bosses you've checked are whammies, then you have to come back here anyway. Although Edward's showing off why he's not afraid of a Dark Knight.
Yeah, if you play your saves correctly, though, you could definitely reset back to Earth, check the harp, reset back to the bottom of the LST by using your save slots. Yeah, I think Plumerian Knight in chat is spot on.
No value for that Dark Knight. Cecil switching to battle speed 6, what we call Wyvern Standard Time, because it gives you as much time as possible to get set up for the initial Mega Nuke.
You're gonna like having that Bacchus wine he found earlier before making these checks to zerk that Eddie up, because we do not have white on that Rosa yet, I don't think.
Yeah, and there's a lot of hit points. This is where the D-lunars normally hang out, and they each have a little over 20,000 hit points, so Wyvern gets both of their hit points here. And even though JohnBirckhead has survived the initial Mega Nuke, he is now going to have to deal with constant barrage of reflected nukes as he works his way through this fight.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that John's got to spend this time working through these fights, and that's the best option from where he's sitting, because Funnelcakes doesn't have to do any of that. He could leave a save, and that's exactly what he's doing. Leave a save, go check the giant, and he can hold off clearing until he checks that giant.
Yeah, making good use of those saves, as you and Fiery Blizzard were talking about earlier. He's off to the giant. We know he's about to find value at the element spot. That'll give him 7 out of 7 and his crystal.
Now I'm trying to think about this. Funnelcakes is about to see go mode. We know that.
It's gonna be a long fight.
Is there a scenario here? Is there something that JohnBirckhead could find in this ribbon room that's going to get him to that Ogopogo quick enough to make this a race? I'm having a hard time coming up with something.
Yeah, if he hadn't done the Rex, well, we know the Earth Crystal isn't up here. If he didn't have Baron Key, I could see Baron Key yanking him back down to Earth immediately. If he didn't have that already. But I can't see him bailing just for this Tower Key, for example. I think he's committed to trying to clear out as much of what he wants here. At this point, back on Earth, he's got Tower Key, and oh, hey, look, it is enough. He's exiting out. Maybe after Tower Key, he goes to Harp.
I can see that. Make 2 checks.
Yeah, assuming Tower Key is a bust. If Ogopogo's at Tower Key, then he just goes straight back up the moon. Thing is though, I mean, these are very good runners, but Z fights are never really free. We talked about the difficulty of the party comp earlier, and if you look at Funnelcakes' party, that we've got Porum, Rosa, and Fu for Nuke White White with a little bit of help from Kane. Porum's going to have trouble shrugging off those big bangs. If there's not enough damage to push through, I like Funnelcakes' chances, but I wouldn't be willing to say it's guaranteed.
Yeah, you're definitely right. When you're relying on Forum as one of those, as one of your reflect strat linchpins, then yeah, you're definitely prone to the big bang high rolls. Thankfully, we found a fair amount of gear to kind of mitigate that with the Sork ropes. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Unfortunately for JohnBirckhead, though, that's just the water hag in the super cannon room, and yeah, we reset back to the moon.
Okay, so Birckhead not tempted by the harp. Just a quick check of the tower. Gonna keep on moving.
Yeah, committing to the heart fade. Unfortunately, I mean, yeah, it's. I'm never gonna say just committing to the heart fade is a bad play.
No.
But it's just the result of the seed here is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, this particular seed heavily rewarded the harp check, and it is a very polarizing check amongst the many options here in Free Enterprise because of how long it takes, and because it's one boss and one key item, but it is a randomizer, and you never know where exactly what you need is going to turn up from seed to seed. Plumeria Knight, the Earth Crystal is behind the D-lunars at the Leviathan spot in the Feymarch.
Funnelcake's going to make a lot quicker work with this Golbez with 2 white casters. And now we just got the food back up, so a lot more damage coming towards the Golbez from Funnelcake's side. This should not take long.
JohnBirckhead, meanwhile, clearing out Keblin and Queblin. See if we get Luca or Package, which by now we know are the only 2 possible locations for Ogopogo. No, just a Magma Key.
And yeah, well, with that Magma Key, I can officially say, yay, we can get underground now.
But is Underground cute? Does Underground have a hat?
Underground had 4 hats. The football gauntlet with 4 conjurers, right? Do the conjurers wear hats? I think they do.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's the Crystal on Funnelcake side, and JohnBirckhead's still trying to do checks to find that 7th boss. Unfortunately, we know where one of those 7th bosses is, and it's going to see Quake on some gas, but Funnelcakes is very quickly working towards Zeromus.
Warping his way out, about to go fight Z. He'll definitely have at least a 1-fight advantage on this. Like, even if he's slowed down by an unfortunate counter nuke and doesn't get through the first time, I think that JohnBirckhead will still be searching for his crystal at that moment.
Yeah, and looking through chat again, yeah, Pancraz, JohnBirckhead faded the D-lunars at the Feymarch, so does not have the Earth Crystal as a result.
Yeah, the Gauntlet is where Kane got his defense sword. There are flags. They are in chat. They have the letter Z on them and question marks.
Oh yay! Chad is waving me through to go to bed, right?
All right, yeah, that sounds legit. Good night, White2 Sky. I can take it from here.
Yeah, thanks. No. Sorry, can't do that to y'all. So, Commander, you've done a good job. Let's see if I can kind of replicate your genius here. So, we can't randomize the location of Zeromus. He's too powerful. We've talked about the damage that Big Bangs can do already when we talked about Party Comp. So, because we cannot randomize Zeromus' location, we instead chose to randomize his sprite. So, when we get to Zeromus, every night, every seed, we ask the same question. Whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
Indeed. And amongst those randomized sprites, we are well over 500, working our way towards 6, most of which put into the randomizer by our very own amazing art dev, Scala Kitty, who I saw waving a Z flag not too long ago. And kind of like the joy we have with the heart check, we love to find out who we're going to see here.
As Funnelcakes gets ready to show us the big reveal, Birkhead seems to have found the Luca key at. I think was it the Masa? Was that Masa spot or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, 50-50 chance of finding his Ogo. Herg. That is a Zeromus.
That is a Zeromus.
This is new to me.
This is new to me too. Kind of cute. Definitely a cute growing style. But the name is sending me.
Right? Yeah. You could put a hat on those horns, right? Like there's a lot of different options for hats here. None of them are being used right now, though.
Oh, Commander, I'm showing my age, but I have to ask the question. We have zero moose. Where's zero squirrel?
Well, gosh, Rocky, I don't know.
JohnBirckhead going into the sealed cave. We've got ladies reflecting lights at Zero Moose. So far, Funnelcakes doing pretty well here. First Big Bang is out.
And Scala letting us know that this moose is the moose from Mickey Mania. We're bringing the Canadians all in from the woodwork with Zeromus.
Indeed. Looking like we're trying to microwave a Zeromus right now.
Reflect strats in full force. Is there going to be enough damage to get through before the next Big Bang?
I will tell. Meanwhile, we're about to see the boss check. Is this the Ogopogo for JohnBirckhead in the sealed cave?
It is not. It is bygones. So now we in chat have seen every boss check except the package. That's where Ogo is. Mylon Z that Funnelcakes already fought is at Twin Heart. Those are the two places JohnBirckhead needs to get his crystal.
Yep, and the second shake queued up for Zeromus. But I'm seeing a different shake, and that is GG for Funnelcakes. Funnelcakes is our winner with a time of 1:35:38. GG.
And we touched on it at the beginning, but this is a best-of-3 match between Funnelcakes. So this is a 1-0 lead, but JohnBirckhead is not done yet. There will be 2 more matches later this week between these fine runners. So keep an eye on the restream schedule and see what the news is.
And from what I can see in our booth, we also have a Funnelcakes in our booth. GG. Very well played seed with a lot of different possibilities. How do you feel about that one?
I was feeling kind of behind, if I'm being honest, with Earth Crystal feeling like a bust, and the attempt at CPU really kind of made me feel in a bind at that point. But otherwise, I was pretty happy with my early game, and I'm interested to play it back because I heard me and John took some rather different early overworld routing.
Yeah, some different overworld routing. Y'all kind of converged back together and ended up in a foot race on the hook route because John just faded Evelyn Castle and opted to take early eggs after getting underground, while you kind of full looted Evelyn Castle. So that ended up kind of equalizing despite your divergence. The big one is you hitting the pass and that Mylon at Twin Heart. John committed to the heart fade throughout.
Yeah, that's what he was saying, and The only reason I did it is picking up that Earth Crystal off D-lunars. I took a gamble on that Sparkle, and I was committed to following it wherever it led, for the most part.
Yeah, that makes all sorts of sense. You're going to spend the time on that fight, you want to chase it, and then since you're in the area, there's no better time to look into that harp.
Yeah, exactly. It was either then or never, was my thinking.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
No, go ahead, Matt.
Just thinking about party comp, that even though there are only 7 characters, we've seen in a lot of these seeds that there's been a lot of different choices you can make in the party, and this seed was no exception. Did the spoon, when you grabbed that, did you have any temptation?
I did, and then pulling that defense sword off the Gauntlet fight, I believe, kind of made me go, I'll just keep game. I didn't want to have to deal with keeping Edward up and keeping him alive, especially through Z, and finding Bacchus wine somewhere, which either were not in the seed or on the moon, I believe. And so I figured I'm gonna just keep Kane with a defense sword. It'll be all right. And then when I didn't take Porum down for the Gauntlet fight, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna readjust to mages, since I know White Nuke can tear through a Z fight pretty quick.
Yeah, very well played on your part. Let's see. Thinking more about the underground routing. Talk us through your thought process as you're kind of finding the underground checks, and then you kind of hit a point. Like you said, I think the Earth Crystal kind of tipped you towards that Zot check. But you get underground. You don't really have a pan. Dwarf doesn't really open anything up. Walk us through your thought process going underground, and what are you looking for to kind of make that decision?
I was hoping for something from Dwarf to really help, but I'm not a huge fan of Keyless Tower. I think that's a long walk for a non-required boss, and a fight that's, it's not particularly hard with my party. It just, it can be rough sometimes. And so I was kind of just chasing what I had. I was comfortable with doing the Fey March boss with a Fu that was hitting around 7k a hit. I had Moon Veils for a real punchy boss if I really needed to, and I figured with Moon Veils and Elixirs, I can kind of just brute force there and figure out what I'm going to do after those 2 bosses.
Very good. Well, definitely look like you definitely put together a fantastic run. It's resulted in the win. You got game 2 coming up shortly. Any adjustments you might make, or adjustments to practice you might work on, or are you just kind of gonna just keep going full steam into game 2?
I'm gonna try to kind of settle my nerves a little bit. I was feeling a little jumpy with some of my choices, but I'm gonna try and keep my game where I like it. I try not to adjust too much from game to game. I want to play something I'm strong with. I don't want to be throwing in curveballs when I don't need to.
Gotcha. Well, definitely looking forward to your game 2 for sure. I'm good, Commander. You got anything else for Funnelcakes?
Just GG's and congratulations, and looking forward to the next one. Well done.
Thank you very much, and GG's again to John, and thank you guys for all putting this on. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night.
You as well. And with that, we are joined by JohnBirckhead. GG's.
Jeez.
That pesky harp.
Yeah, they, I watch a lot of really good runners, and they talk about, like, if it's your fade, it's your fade, and it was available so early. And I was really tempted to go ahead and take it before going underground to get the extra spells, but it didn't have a lot of physical DPS, and the magic defense is so high at that spot. So I faded it, and ended up getting nuke for mist, and that was it. And, once he kind of faded, I just figured, well, that was it. There was some temptation to take it when I checked Zot 1. It's just it's a long check. But with no pass and 2 bosses left and no tower key, no earth, no no package, no Luca key, I really should have. In retrospect, it was just you know, some people would say it's rando being rando, but I think it was just a bad decision.
I mean, it was a perfectly understandable decision. Like you said, it was a long check. Funnelcakes a moment ago said the only reason he checked it is because he slogged through those D-lunars and got an earth crystal out of them.
Yeah, we were talking in the race room about that, and yeah, I felt good when I went giant first to try to get some experience because I had 10 key items, found Golbez, had 1 boss left. 4 checks outstanding, but I felt behind, so I was very, very aggressive in face checking, and then very aggressive in checking the the key items, the tower key and Luca key. Obviously they were both busts, and it was too late at that point. So
Yeah, well, John, I do have to say, just watching this race, you definitely should watch it back. Just if nothing else, to kind of see how you actually played the seed. You and Funnelcakes were running a very, very close race up until that point when the results of the seed just kind of got you. I mean, like you said, you were walking through the logic of your decision, and it's definitely not unsound by any stretch of the imagination. It was a fine decision. Just the randomizer just dealt you a bad one on this one. But one thing I definitely want to ask is about what you're thinking about party comp in the early game. That was definitely one of the more interesting sets of 7 characters that you could have been given, especially with a foo start. Walk us through your party comp strategy as you're playing out the early game here.
yeah, so I was kind of just winging it. My first ever foo blue moon seed was actually yesterday. And I've watched a handful of Red Moon, and I kind of wanted to treat it more or less like a Red Moon seed, which got me in trouble early on because it's Sineki, and getting some of those early bosses was a little bit tricky. But once I kind of got going with it, and I was just picking people up along the way, figuring Fu was kind enough to get through, and Kane would kind of be a melee. And then with 2 white mages and an anchor of some kind, whether it was Sid, and then I switched it out for Eddie. I thought maybe I can go ahead and just go full reflect, and Kane would be my Val insurance to go ahead and kind of get through there. Just ride the overpowered Fu to go ahead and kind of get through. And then when I found the spoon, I thought that would be good for a little extra DPS because, Fu's magic is low. 3 nukes run out pretty quickly, especially when you're on the moon. And sometimes the buffering of zerking a character can just buy you some time to go ahead and make decisions and recover. So at that point, I made a decision to go ahead and grind Rosa up to Cure 4 and leave Porum down in case there was a Fey March boss that was required, or one that I could take because I didn't have Darkness Crystal at that point. Found the Gauntlet, but I did not want to do this D-lunar, so obviously I faded it. And then when I went to the moon, I just swapped out Rosa because with Yang being at 8 and the ninja hat that I had, I could get Fu to RA1.
Fantastic. I, for one, loved seeing you pivot to the spoon when it opened up. Definitely, especially with some of the power shirt that was from the rat tail. That was, yeah. I love watching those pivots. I love getting the opportunity to get somebody to swing for high melee damage like that. So yeah, definitely got the thumbs up from me making that decision.
Okay, well that's good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Here. So, this does put you at 0-1 in a best of 3.
It does.
But still, plenty of time to turn it around. We've seen people bounce back from 0-1 in this tournament and others before. Any thoughts about the next match or two?
I mean, Funnel is objectively the better runner. We went back and forth on the asyncs a little bit, but his execution is cleaner. Right now he's objectively better. I mean, it's just is what it is. And I think that drove probably some of my aggression on the moon. It's possible that if I had felt more on par with him, maybe I would have been a little more thorough on the blue planet before going. But going into tomorrow night, I hope I'm not too tired. I hope my daughter sleeps so that I'm not distracted by that. Foo starts are very different than other starts. You know, there's no Tello, there's no Cecil. This was a very kind of an atypical seed. And I tried to handle it the best that I could. You know, I know that I know that I can win. I just kind of give myself a little while to kind of shake this off a little bit. Just try to be focused for tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I'll second what Y2 Sky said about going back and watching it. You go watch it, and you're going to see that both you and your opponent, Funnelcakes, are heading down the moon, each with 6 objectives in hand, and that you're about a check ahead of him the whole time. So if that hadn't just turned out a completely haunted moon, this goes very differently. It just was what it was this time. So I think you've got a real good shot at the next 2 matches, and Funnelcakes had better keep bringing his A game.
Well, I'm sure that he will. He's just a wonderful, wonderful runner. So, GG's to him, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
Yep, definitely, John. Yeah, and don't forget, you know, you're in the final 4 for a reason. So, you keep your head up high and keep running. You'll get there.
That's the plan. So, thank you both for doing comms. Looking forward to it. Nibari, there's so many restreams. So thank you so much. And fire with the tracking. There's no season like tourney season. So thank you all so much. And I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
See you then. Looking forward to it.
All right, take care.
All right, that was our runner-up of Game 1, JohnBirckhead. Give both the runners a follow. You've seen what they can put on tonight, and you'll see plenty more great free enterprise action from them on their channels as well once tournament season is over. This does end our free enterprise broadcast, but we've got more free enterprise tonight, don't we?
Yes, we do. I believe we're going to send you over to Flossie Fern, another one of our Blue Moon competitors who's running some free enterprise on her own stream. Don't forget to tune back in tomorrow. We've got a Stone Dingley versus Rex Banner at 3 Eastern on the Red Moon side. That'll be on the flagship Free Enterprise channel. And if I'm reading this right, I think we're back on RPG Limit Break for Game 2 of this series tomorrow night as well.
Yep, absolutely. That is what's happening. Thanks once again for having us over RPG Limit Break to show off this fun little randomizer. And for everyone that put on the broadcast and the audience for coming by to watch. Thank you all.